What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Roll Up. And today's episode is with our good friend and Ethereum researcher, Emmanuel. He also leads the 2077 Collective, which is primarily focused on fixing Ethereum's marketing problem. You may have seen Emmanuel's tweets all over the timeline, and he is absolutely crushing it and has tons of insights on where Ethereum is right now, how we can make Ethereum cool again, and bring together all of these fragmented rollups into one unified Ethereum. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Before we get into it, first, a word from our sponsors.
Everclear is pioneering the clearing layer. The clearing layer can almost be thought of as splitwise when you go on a trip with friends, but for the blockchain. What I mean by that is when users are sending cross-chain messages, there's oftentimes fillers and solvers who have balances left on different chains that they need to rebalance and reset their positions. This is where Everclear comes in. Everclear is pioneering a collaborative approach to the chain abstraction future, and they are willing to work with interoperability partners, solvers, and other providers in the space to build a interoperable and chain abstraction future. Check out Everclear at everclear.org, and welcome back to the Rollup.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rollup. Today, we are going to address Ethereum's marketing problem, the progressive decentralization of rollups, whether or not Ethereum should have base layer changes, this idea of making Ethereum cool again that Emmanuel is pioneering with a collective dubbed 2077 Collective and the EIP 2077. And honestly, just shoot the shit and have some fun. So, Rob, GM, and what's going on, man?
GM, we've been slamming it post ECC, so this is part of the new rendition of podcasts that are coming down the pipeline. We got a chance to meet up with Emmanuel, who has a very wise-looking profile picture, and the personality stands up to the profile picture in person. So, Emmanuel, welcome to the Roll-Up, man. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Big fan, so it's like a dream having to be here. So yeah.
Cheers, man.
Hell yeah, man.
I mean, you got Ethereum 2077 started because Ethereum doesn't quite have a marketing department like a lot of these other big tech companies or Solana. The Ethereum Foundation is very research focused, does like very little to no marketing. And so now you kind of like saw that as a problem and you're ready to solve that problem. So first, tell us about like why it's a problem that Ethereum doesn't have a marketing department, and then we'll get into the solution.
I think the problem is at the end of the day, we are trying to like build tech, and the idea is to get people using the tech and building on the tech, which is like that's kind of point. So like user acquisition and build a developer application like the two goals, because if you have a dead chain, no one uses it. So like it could be the best chain in the world and no one is using it, like no one's going to care. It's like there are actual chains out there that are very good. I mean, not good to name names, but like there are good chains out there that no one uses. So that's like the end goal. And the fact that we spend so much time on trying to like build this stuff and not trying to like get into the hands of people or think about like mass adoption, or not like mass adoption in cringy next billion users way, but like at least in the sense of like trying to get more people into the ecosystem, more people building on tech, more people using the tech. I feel like that's an issue. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's just because in crypto, like crypto is not like standard tech, but like for standard tech companies, this is like a no-brainer. Like Apple invests so much in ads and narrative making and all of that. Amazon does this, Tesla does this. So like it is a standard for like if you're building tech, you need to like market it. But for Ethereum, we've not really done that. And I think the issue was because like maybe the competitive landscape looked very different in 2019. But funny enough, there was a marketing deal. I mean, I found out after the collective started, but there was an actual marketing deal back in 2019 that had it was very like similar, like the same insight that I had. So now if you imagine that we had a marketing deal that wanted to solve quote unquote the marketing problem back in 2019, you must imagine the problem has worsened in the like preceding 5 years, in the next subsequent 5 years. So yeah, so I feel like the end issue of not like treating marketing seriously, like we lose mindshare, we lose investments, we lose developers, and like in the end, it becomes this fringe chain like that no one wants to use. People think it cannot happen. For certain reasons, like there's this network effect, and then there's like big lead and all that. I'm like, in tech, you just need maybe one breakout application or something. There's like so many weird edge event that you're not like going to predict that can like change the game so far. So when people say something like, well, Ethereum has won and blah blah blah, I'm like, hey, you're like new competitors coming on the ground and stuff, and you need to like compete. So that's like my thesis in general.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just am trying to figure out where Ethereum's like current like narrative is for the different people in the space. Like, if we're thinking about the space, you've got like the people that are here, that are using DeFi, that are engaging on chain. They don't want to use Ethereum. They have a problem with Ethereum because of the gas fees on layer one and the transactions times, which like understandable. Like, okay, fine, this makes sense, and I think that that's generally like a reasonable take. So okay, so we have rollups, right? We have Arbitrum and Optimism and all these other rollups that exist. They are much faster, much cheaper, much better. And that the only issue right there for the community, I think, is they're not seen as extensions of Ethereum, rather their own entity. So like that's like within the space. And then you have like, centralized exchange users, which I think are a little bit different. But then you have like people who aren't even in crypto, whether it be people that are going to buy the Ethereum ETF or institutions or family offices or investment funds and these types of people, as well as just like average folk. And I don't know how you explain Ethereum to these people. Like how do you explain Ethereum to like somebody who is reasonably versed within the traditional finance system, but perhaps not at all in crypto?
Um, I think the narrative of like open finance, open permissionless, maybe censor resistant, and like social finance is like really good, because I'm not like the kind of person that would say, well, like traditional finance, like DeFi is going to like replace traditional finance, and like they're going to burn down Wall Street or whatever it is. But like there's certain efficiencies that DeFi gives you. So better settlements, 24/7, whatever it is, like that kind of operational efficiency that come from having things going on chain. So for example, you can compare how do USDC payments compare to say PayPal or Venmo, for example. So those are like some of the things you can like explain to. So it should be, and again, this is kind of why I tend to say that you need to first treat Ethereum as a tech project. Like if you can say this is tech, and then like these are the advantages of this tech, then we have like a place to come out from. And it's a hard problem because the thing is, you're trying to communicate Ethereum to like so many people, institutions, and normal, like what you said, like there's DeFi people, there's like normies and all of that. But I feel like what I'm really, what I really want to work on for like the next couple months to kind of like have this messaging that's not monolithic. Like if I'm just doing on over, like it's modular enough to like accommodate different things. So I feel currently what we've had in the Ethereum ecosystem is this sense of we need to say one thing, it's tokenization or it's sound money or something like that. So we sort of like we have this path dependence where we lock ourselves into one thing, and it becomes hard to like, because if you say something like, well, Ethereum is just sound money, that doesn't appeal to developers, and like you're pushing away developers. So you want something, a message that sort of like accommodates everyone, and that's like something I feel like we can definitely work towards. So yeah, that's just like my take.
Yeah, I kind of like the ultrasound money idea, but the Ethereum burn just isn't happening anymore.
So I mean, I've been on the record for like protesting against sound money in general. Not because I don't like the underlying theory. I just feel like it's trying too much to be like Bitcoin, and the reason Bitcoin has that claim to being or sound money is because of like different qualities, like say like premature ossification and all that. I'm like, there's no way you can like compete with Bitcoin, 'cause, like Ethereum and Bitcoin like way two different things. So I personally do not like pushing some money that much, because then you run into this very cognitive dissonance. Because now, for example, a good example is this, and there's this proposal where we are like trying to like change issuance because of like a multitude of different factors. And when it came out, it was this like big uproar. Oh my goodness, Ethereum was not going to be sound anymore. But like the truth is, it was never supposed to be, like it was just a meme. Like and then people took it up and then formed like theories around it, and now it's this thing that's supposed to be like guiding like protocol decisions and all of that. So yeah, I mean, I think we definitely like need to move past it. At least this is just for me. So yeah.
It's funny because like Vitalik put out a post not that long ago about layer twos as like cultural extensions of Ethereum, and how I think like the ultrasound money group. And so he, in that article, he lays out three different like subcultures of Ethereum. He lays out the Cypherpunks, who are like legitimately like the builders and the people that are like writing smart contracts. The Degens, who are trading meme coins and NFTs and doing that whole thing, and basically in it for the speculation. And then the Regens, who are like the trying to build technology in a regenerative way and like a constructive way, not a destructive way. These are people that are like voting on governance and like working on public goods and like Gitcoin grants and that sort of thing. And so I think like each of these people have a very distinct set of incentives and reasons why they like Ethereum. And so ultrasound money is going to prescribe to like the people that enjoy like the monetary benefits of it. Each of these different subgroups are going to have their own narratives as to like why they like Ethereum. And so I think part of Ethereum's benefit is like it was always this group of misfits. It was always like this thing that like didn't just have one narrative, but it had multiple narratives. And it did it in a way that it was almost able to coordinate across these very different subgroups and build like something that all of them could work together and kind of like come to an understanding of a greater good. And so now like it's almost like each of those three have a different proposition. Like they have an alternative that is better at each subcategory, but in my opinion, there's nothing that really ties them together. And that, I think that is Ethereum's value proposition, is like, because like, frankly, like there is still cypherpunks that love Bitcoin. The degens are loving Solana. The regens, there's arguably like more like public good elements now that Ethereum has the ETF. It's kind of lost its open source nature. But I think part of Ethereum's value proposition is coordination of the three distinct groups that we see on chain now. I'm like, do you guys think that like that's enough or is there another way that you guys are seeing this?
So I think, and this is something I've like talked about. This is why I've been so particular about not describing like Ethereum as a cypherpunk chain or a regen chain or a degen chain and all of that. Like, because I feel like one, these things are way too restrictive. So, but the danger for Ethereum is because when you have like very influential people that have specific qualities, they tend to like project that. So, for example, maybe someone like Vitalik may say, well, I want it to be very cypher. So everyone think, well, Vitalik is cypherpunk, so Ethereum must be a cypherpunk chain. Or maybe like it's someone from the ultrasound money camp is very influential. So what they say now sort of like maps onto like the public reputation of what Ethereum is. And because again, we don't have the marketing department that's like pushing out something really consistent. And so I think so something I mean, people see me talk about Solana a lot, and I feel like the good thing about only possible on Solana, that narrative, is because it's very broad and it accommodates many things. Do you understand? Like you can build on Solana, you can, so everything we are seeing like on Ethereum, for example, we can do all of that on Solana, for example. You can do regen stuff. You can do public goods funding if you wanted. So if you can do you can tokenize security. So like it's this narrative that sort of like embraces having a multicultural like landscape in general. So like for Ethereum, we've not been able to really do that. So what you really see is sort of like echo chambers in general. So like there's this type of people saying like their stuff. I mean, sometimes you hear stuff like, and I call this out a lot, like this sense of like there's a nation state coming, there's like attacks coming. I'm like, you need to do something that's more realistic and pragmatic, because right now, like, assuming it's true we are like designing for like the worst edge cases, but like we also need to like face reality like in the present right now, and like build for like what people want now. You have like the ETF and like the money people, and like it's almost like there's this really bad echo chamber where like everyone is just like saying their narrative and stuff. So I think we can definitely coordinate. It's just difficult. I think it's become more difficult because now you even have like more financial incentives. Because for example, the camp that says like Ethereum should be sound money and stuff, it's usually made up of like people that started holding Ethereum, holding ETH at maybe like 2017 when it was just like very cheap and stuff. So if Ethereum ossifies prematurely and becomes Bitcoin, well, like your quote unquote your values increase and all that. So there's not financial incentive in place and stuff. So it makes it so difficult to actually like coordinate around like simple set of messaging. So it's all of these things and more. I think, and the truth is, it also goes down. If you want to take a more to a more complex route, you can think of like protocol governance too as well, because this doesn't actually affect protocol governance. When we talk about like changing the L1, which is something we are also going to discuss, people are like, oh no, like Ethereum is going to lose some money process because now you're changing L1 and stuff. And Cypherpunk will be like, well, so the Cypherpunk camp is like, oh no, the only changes we should make are the ones that are biased for censorship resistance, not the ones that are biased for UX as well. So these are like problems. I think they're like, most people don't talk about these problems, but like those problems are there. And I'm not going to like, so because those are like big problems, big community problems. But I think what I can just help do, what I think I really want to do is have this messaging that puts people first. Ethereum should be a place for builders. It should encourage innovation. It's not just about like number go up and like all of that. Like the original goal was to like build stuff. So it should be a place for people should come in and try new tech, and it should not be really elitist, because at some point when we talk about decentralization and credible neutrality, we usually sound like Linux maximalists. Like there's like overlaps there, and I feel like we should definitely change that. So the whole idea of trying to like make Ethereum cool again is this sense of make it welcoming for people, make it less elitist, make it have this culture where like you want to be there. That's the good thing about Solana. Like, I have to give this to them. Like they build this culture where like you want to be there because everyone is there. And like it feels like you can come in there, like no one is going to judge you, and it's not like a church or anything like that. So yeah, I just like in coming months for us, we should just sort of like coordinate around something that like unites everyone in general. So
I think that sounds really good in theory, but like,
but it's difficult.
it's like in practice, people play to the incentives, and so like, yeah, I would love to say that like I want to be on Ethereum because the vibes are good, everyone's here, it's a good friendly vibe. But if I could make 10 times more money on Solana, I gotta pay bills, like maybe I do, like maybe I would have more fun on Ethereum, but like I go to Solana because I gotta survive, right? So like, is it, like how do we solve I think ultimately, like we could argue about whether it's an engineering problem or it's a culture problem, but I think ultimately it's an incentive thing. And it's like, how do we get the incentives right so that the people not just want to build on Ethereum, but it's like in their best economic self-interest to build on Ethereum too.
This is like something I thought about a lot. So something, if people that follow my tweets know I've talked a lot about like super team. So like what super team does for like Solana. So the thing about super team, like when you come into Solana, for example, you come in and there's something called super team earn where you can like work or pay and all of that. Like, and it's a very powerful onboarding tool, because you can come in as a builder, you can get like grants, like build stuff, like no questions asked. We don't have anything like that in Ethereum. In Ethereum, there's way too much PvP. So like, you come to Ethereum right now, some people don't have access to funding. They don't know who to talk to. They don't. I was asking someone a few days ago. I was like, if you want to build an app in the Ethereum ecosystem, would you go to? She was like, I don't know. But like, if you want to do it on Solana, well, you just go to super team and stuff. So building something, and this is personally something I want to build the collective. Have this sense of like, first, let's give like builders the support they want, connect them to resources. Like the money is there, it's just not allocated well enough. So that's like one part of like the economic incentives. And we need to make it. I usually have issues when people like throw around credibly neutral, but like we need to have this neutral platform where builders come to the ecosystem, can actually like get funding to build stuff, and it's not tied to one L2. So it doesn't mean like, well, I'm going to deploy on Optimism and stay there, and like I must not deploy elsewhere. Let's fix that. And also having like something. This is just like a random idea that we are like testing out. A bounty platform. People should be able to. So right now we don't really have something like that. I think that there are some products, but they're not really. It doesn't feel like they represent the Ethereum ecosystem. So if you have like a bounty platform, people come in, they can work on cool things. Maybe it's art, maybe it's whatever it is. Because to give you like a case study, so now I've done like is spending like a lot on like Blink's development. I was talking to someone at ECC, I was like, if you give builders grants to actually build stuff, it's not charity. Like, see how much like Sona spend on like big Blink's development. That stuff pushes the ecosystem forward. And the truth is, there are a couple of people that are trying to like build, they are trying to like build something for the Ethereum ecosystem like that too, but they don't have support. So we need to be able to like connect resources and the platform, and then give people that sense of, okay, you can contribute to the ecosystem and also make money. Because the truth is, one of the biggest problems we have in Ethereum right now is there's, because of the way it started as this volunteer, indie, alcohol open source stuff. So there's this very emphasis on like volunteering and sacrificing your time and all that, but like you don't attract top quality talent that way. So I really want to, like, in the future, people should be able to come in and contribute and like earn for it, and not be forced to sort of like make these very bad trade-offs in sense. So I don't know if that answers the question. So
Yeah. I mean, that is the interesting part of like this like DAO idea, or like these like open communities. There's a lot to unpack there. With regards to kind of the way that we can shift the positioning of Ethereum, as well as just the way that we interact as a community. The thing in particular that I think is interesting is this idea that you brought up about how the subgroups that Rob laid out have different preferences for the way operations, or the way that Ethereum's future should go. And I think that the big conversation now is like around, do we need to make changes to the Ethereum base layer? And like, how is this going to look? Because you're saying like, okay, the Cypherpunks, they don't want changes to the censorship resistance or kind of immutability of Ethereum. However, some of like the more, some of the other subgroups perhaps may see value from like a UX perspective, or from a use case perspective, to make changes to the base layer such that it can rival a faster base layer with lower slot times. And Vitalik even proposed that at ECC as well. So let's kind of open Pandora's box here and discuss from a high level kind of what your perspective is on changing the Ethereum base layer, and why is that something that's even in the zeitgeist right now? Because I thought, and from a lot of people's perspective, I think is Ethereum's base layer is basically as ossified as Bitcoin. But ironically, we're also seeing Bitcoin being proposed to make base layer changes as well. So we're in this very weird time where both of the biggest crypto assets are being proposed, or at least there's more thought than in the previous 5 years about changes to the base layer. So let's kind of open this up and discuss why or why not changes to Ethereum's base layer is potentially a good idea.
I think because again, this is like boils down to like philosophy of like treating as a tech project. If you imagine it's a tech project, you imagine that like there's like changes you need to make, and like you need to stay competitive. So I've pushed for change at the base layer because I think it's just a no-brainer, in a sense. Like, the idea of like the whole role of centric roadmap was that it wasn't that you should like ossify the L1 prematurely. It's just a sense of, you don't need to like there's less stress on core developers to push upgrades that fast. And like the logic is simple. The logic is like, something like Ethereum is never going to compete with, say, Solana, or like just shipping speed. So like you have like L2s to like do that, which is true. But then it doesn't mean like the base layer itself should not like never improve. You still want to improve, but just at a slower rate. Because something I usually tell people is like the roadmap, the popular one, Vitalik publishes every year, it's like 40% or 30% complete. So like there's a long list of changes you want to make. There is, say, lower slot times. There is single slot finality. There is EOF. There's native account abstraction. So like there's these things, and we all admit that these things are good. So with these things require change to the base layer. So I don't think it's really healthy for us to say something like, well, we need to just ossify because of something, maybe some weird reasons. I'm seeing weird reasons like, well, it is going to be the backbone of the financial system. They're like, we need to ossify prematurely. I'm like, financial system is just one part, and this is like something like, I mean, if we already coordinated decision making before, we can always coordinate decision making in the future. So like that's not a good reason. And competing with Bitcoin is also not a good reason because it doesn't make sense. Because in the end, I feel like one of the issues I usually have with like saying let's ossify because of the money aspect is you're essentially saying like the only thing you care about is ETH holders and you're not really caring about like users and builders and stuff. And that's like not really good. So so yeah, I think basically changes make sense, at least within that constraint of we don't want to sacrifice certain qualities. And this is a big issue because I feel like many people in the Ethereum community have this black or white thinking where it's like you either make changes or you don't. You either if you make changes, you're sacrificing decentralization. If you don't make changes, you preside, and which is wrong because, for example, someone said something about Ethereum being like engineering focused. Like if you say something like, well, we want to allow people on consumer hardware validate the chain. Well, we need to be precise about what consumer hardware means. Consumer hardware is from 2019 is not the same as consumer hardware now. So we need to like define a precise limit and increase the gas limit to account for those things. So like, but we don't have these conversations because I don't know. It's just we never have this conversation. So like, I feel like in conversations around the base layer, like there was this exchange between I think Peter from the Get theme and Vitalik where it was like, well, they're going to murder home stakers, and Vitalik had to like come in and say, well, like that's not actually true. Like sure, like home stakers might be affected, but like there are ways we can work around this. And this is something I really want to communicate to like Ethereum community. Like, for example, if you're going to do something like say single stop finality, you might not have because single stop finality doesn't really like work with so many validators. So we need to like reduce validator count. But then a potential workaround is you sort of like accelerate distributed validators. So for example, me, you, Robbie, we can have like one cluster and like we are all solo stakers. You are pulling, say, maybe 8 ETH or however much you're pulling. Like it's still solo stakers, but not solo stakers the way you know it. So like that's like so there's headroom. Something from Charlie from Paradigm usually says like there's headroom that we can like explore if you are creative enough. If we think UX matters, if we think scaling matters, not 15-second block times and high gas fees. And so like these are engineering problems and we should be ambitious enough to like solve engineering problems. So yeah, I feel like we just need to like recover our mission because that's something I feel like, I don't know, maybe at some point, maybe after the merge, we sort of like lost it. And this is like a meme. People say, oh, now that the merge is done, we're going to do more like less ambitious upgrades. And I don't think it's really like valid because even if it's a case of well, some engineers have lost their ambition and like maybe just place engineers, you don't say something like, well, because I don't want to do this anymore, so we should not do anything anymore. I don't think that's like the right perspective to say.
Mantle is a layer 2 blockchain with one of the biggest on-chain treasuries in all of crypto, and they had a 100-day campaign called Metamorphosis live now. What this is it is a campaign for their liquid staked ETH token, METH, as well as their upcoming liquid restaking token, CMETH, where you can utilize this token on the Mantle network in a variety of different apps, some of your favorite restaking protocols and DeFi protocols, and earn yields in the form of powder, which will eventually be turning into a governance token. Mantle's been around for a while. We like them because they use their own form of EigenDA. They have a good ecosystem and they're growing. So check out this 100-day Metamorphosis campaign and hope you guys enjoy the rest of this video.
Cartesi is your home for app-specific rollups. At the forefront of developing new tools and platforms that enhance the capabilities of blockchain technology, Cartesi enables applications that are flexible and built to scale. Build on a full Linux environment and use traditional software libraries, but in blockchain development. Go to cartesi.io, that's cartesi.io, to learn more about building your own app chain today.
Yeah, what about just real quick on that point, so you think that basically adjusting the base layer, the proponents of the Ethereum community who do not want to adjust the base layer are like ETH holders who do not want to take extra risk with their financial assets versus the community who's pushing forward for making changes to the base layer, regardless of what those changes are, which we can talk about. is more of the user and builder and kind of developer community who wants to see Ethereum compete and thrive long term as a network, less so necessarily as like an asset?
Yeah, I
Kind
mean
of both.
it's more nuanced. So for example, there's that set. I mean, I'm going to record, but like there's that set. Like this is just based on like my what I've seen. There's that set. There's also people who are like, well, Ethereum is not like they're not necessarily like holders, like not big holders, but like they're concerned that like if you keep shipping like upgrades to, like this network, you increase the chances of a consensus breaking bug. It's like in the sense of like if you have a bug where like the chain splits, someone is going to lose money because there's going to be like two canonical forks and we need to like choose one. So like someone is going to lose money. So like that's like one angle I've seen, especially among core developers, where like, hey, Ethereum is no longer like this network securing like 60 million. It's securing like I think 430 billion right now. So and that's like a value perspective as well. But I just think like again, because we're humans and not robots, so there's times when like we just over-index on certain things to the point where we think, oh my goodness, don't break anything, and that becomes don't touch anything. Like don't touch anything is like is this hammer with a nail, is this man with a hammer approach that says, well, this is this blanket solution, like don't do anything, just leave it there. And I'm like, they're like, again, this is goes back to the point of being ambitious and stuff. Like, of course, the more values at stake, the more testing you need to do, the more prototyping you need to do. Like, that's we should be instead of having approaching this conversation from like don't do anything, we should approach this conversation from okay, we want to do something. What are the obstacles? How do we solve it? And yeah, that goes back to the whole idea of like being engineering focused and product focused. Yeah.
Yep. I also think that like in this framing, like the marketing slogan of like Mega ETH, make Ethereum great again, and also like what you guys are saying with make Ethereum cool again, take it for what it is. I don't think that's great marketing because it's like it implies that the current state is not great nor cool. I think I saw a Mert tweet about this a couple days ago, and I highly resonated with that one.
Yeah.
So food for thought there.
I don't think it's that problematic. I mean, as a person who said make Ethereum cool again, because the truth is, if we run a survey right now, I don't think Ethereum's cool factor is that high. This is just me speaking. And the cool factor is not just because of well, it's a bad chain. That's like this. So again, this is like a perception problem. I mean, if I say Robbie is not cool, it's just me telling you Robbie is not cool. Robbie is cool, is a cool person, new person. So it's a perception problem.
I mean, man, like I'm not sure when like devs coding Solidity programming language and smart contracts is ever going to be cool.
It's good to know. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about it. So for example, again, we're going to see Solana as a third point. When you think of builders, like when you think of an ecosystem of builders that looks like Silicon Valley, what comes to mind? If I run this survey and I put Ethereum and like Solana to people, most people tell me Solana. It's not like coincidental, really. Like it's a perception problem. Like this sense of the builders on Ethereum don't really talk. Like they're not have their bull posting and like nerd sniping people and say, hey, I'm working on this thing. Oh, it's cool and stuff. Like every time I log into CT, everything I see is Solana bull post. Oh, people are doing this on Solana. This is possible on Solana. Someone is building this thing. I'm like, we do have these things on Ethereum. Like that's if you follow my tweet, I try to like do this a lot. Like we do have this in Ethereum, but like no one is talking about it. So we do need to talk about it. So and also like the whole idea of like make Ethereum great again. Like I just think I mean, because for example, rollups are good, but like they could be better. So
I mean, I stand behind. Like, I think like what you guys are. Yeah, exactly. Like the Ethereum community needs more young people that want to support it and like bring culture on chain. I generally agree with that. I mean, it's just nitpicking, really. One thing, and then I know Rob's got quite a few questions. Which base layer changes are you a fan of, and which base layer changes are you not so much of a fan of, and why?
I think native account abstraction is very good because, like, at least for UX, so there's like EIP 7702 coming, and then there's like the more complex ones, the actual native account abstraction that like gives us like accounts and all that like comes on. I think that's something I'm really big on. PDAS is also good because like data availability is like a bottleneck for rollups, so solving that's really good because my thesis is really like I think when that dispute around like PDAS came up, I was like, if you don't improve Ethereum data availability, people are going to use alternative DA layers, and like that is, I mean, they're good for like specific use cases, but like you don't want everyone suddenly switching to alt DA because of like more trust assumption. So if you've chosen roll-up centric roadmap, well, we best do whatever it takes like for the roll-up centric roadmap to work. So I feel like those two are really critical. Can't think of like maybe lower store times. Maybe I think that's good. Single stuff analysis is also good, especially from like a UX perspective. I think that's something people have been discussing. I hope like it comes soon enough. As for base layer changes that I don't think that I have strong opinions about, not really sure. I think I just really have like, I won't say skepticism. I won't say skepticism. I just feel like sometimes MEV research tends to like dominate too much, and there's like this over allocation of like because it's sexy. So, and I really fear that sometimes there's this I don't know if you know this game, this whack-a-mole, where like you just like hit something and it comes up in another place. So there's this infinite harm's race between like us trying to like do MEV and like let's quote unquote fix MEV in a sense. I just hope that we don't over-index on that at the expense of like doing more UX stuff, more builder stuff, more because again like there's time and energy is finite. So like I would not want us to like spend scarce research energy on like we should start maximizing ROI and say, hey, if you're going to do this, this is what you're doing. And this is something I think one of Charlie's posts said it like this sense of there's certain things we need to prioritize. Like we don't really do that, and I wish we should do that. So yeah.
I think MEV is actually a big culprit of why Ethereum has its like elitist attitude or like elitist culture behind it, because MEV had such a like steep rise to dominance in the zeitgeist that people didn't have time to really understand it. And then before it was too late, it was like, oh, everyone's getting cucked by MEV. And it's like, no normies can exist because like, you know, everyone's getting wrecked by slippage, and only the select few people are the ones that are benefiting from MEV. And so then it's like, well, now the rich are getting richer, the normies aren't winning, and Ethereum is an elitist chain. We have to go to a different chain like Solana where there's memes and it's fun and normies can make money. And again, it's just an incentive thing. And so like, yeah, I think like it fundamentally is like this incentive problem that drives culture. Or maybe it's the culture that drives the incentives, but you know, we do have to like figure out a way to either make the changes at the base layer so that it is more supportive and more people can just win at the base layer, or like everyone just moves to L2s and Ethereum finds a way to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's definitely something. I don't think like we're ever going to get to a state where like everyone is on L2s. Yeah, and it's not like totally necessary. That's like I think that's like one of the recognition of like that's why we went pretty roll-up centric, like this sense of not everyone needs to be on L1. I just have this problem with framing it like no one should use L1s, and I think like that's like very terrible because in the end like there's DeFi people that can use L1 for starting reasons. Like Uniswap is still on L1. There are like tons of like applications on L1 that people should see use. And funny enough, there's still MEV on like Solana. Like people get sandwiched all the time. Yeah. So it's a messaging thing. So like one, messaging means like fixed messaging. And two, we also need to be actually very serious about, okay, see, we have this L2 centric roadmap. How do we make it work for users? Like what changes do we actually, for example, there was this time I was like posting something like IBC for L2s because I mean, everyone agrees like bridging sucks and all that. Like in the sense of how do we build our infra standards? How do we coordinate around this to actually make L2s a viable alternative to rollups? That's why like I'm also like big on like PDAS, for example. So like, and that's something we don't really think about because there's a sense of, well, we've handed everything to L2, so like they can just solve it on their own, which is not possible. So yeah.
I'm kind of thinking like I'm on the fence about these changes to the base layer because I'm getting to the opinion of like, well, yes, we want to make changes to the base layer because it's like you got to adapt or die, right? And so we have to continue to innovate. Otherwise, something better is going to come along and eat Ethereum's lunch. But because Ethereum is roll-up centric, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to adapt the base layer so that retail users are using L1. like, I think maybe Ethereum is more mature now than it was a few years ago, where like, yeah, maybe retail users were using the L1 before, but like if an institution comes along, like wants to create their own app chain, they're going to probably do that on Ethereum, right? It's going to end up settling to Ethereum. And so maybe that's okay. And we just fill up all of the Ethereum block space with rollups. And there aren't, it's like Solana's going through like its retail normie moment and it's getting a lot of users, but Ethereum's going through its like institutional moment. And yeah, maybe you call it elitist, but those are the projects, those are the companies with distribution. And so if an institution comes along and launches an app chain, as long as it settles to Ethereum, like, and that institution reaches users, there's still a potential for Ethereum to reach 1 million billion users, you know? But no one's using the L1. It's just everyone's using these app chain rollups and then they settle to the L1. So I'm curious, Emmanuel, like, what is your perspective on the app chain thesis or like the rollup centric roadmap in general? Do you think people should use the L1 or do you think people like just use rollups and then like all of the Ethereum block space just filled up with rollup data?
I think
Is that okay?
I think the thing that it's not mutually exclusive. I think there's a mistake we usually make, this sense of, well, it's role of central group also, like nothing is happening on L1, everything is happening on L2s. Because the truth is, if you check it right now, people are still using mainnets. So like they have reasons for using mainnets. Maybe it's like unified liquidity or whatever. Whatever reasons they want to use mainnets for. Maybe it's composability between like apps and all of that. So my contention is usually like, let's at least make the L1 or stable for some apps. It's not super difficult to do that. And then if we want to have like high performance apps, we can like do them on rollups. I feel like rollups are already well developed today. So like I wouldn't advise the average user to use a rollup, right? I wouldn't advise the average user to like use the L1. Do you understand? But like we should not quote unquote push users, like deliberately now push users out of the L1 and then sell this idea of, oh, it's a B2B chain and like it's just the big boys using this chain. I don't think that's like really good, because at the same time, I think now there's this dispute around whether like blob fees actually accrue to L1. Like you still need some level of economic activity on chain to actually do certain things. Because for example, this is just my toy math. Like let's imagine how do you make staking attractive to people? People, for staking to be attractive, there needs to be transaction fees. Like, you've seen how much people have been posting Solana flips Ethereum in fees and whatever it is. Like, that's a sign. Like, in a sense of, you still need people doing things. Because if staking is not attractive, but people withdraw their stake and like economic security goes down, at least people are not staking so much because it's not so attractive and stuff. So those are some of like what I feel can be like the negative effect of like going full throttle on this idea of like pushing L2s and like saying, oh, nothing should happen on L1. I feel like we should recognize that like there are good reasons why Ethereum was quote unquote prioritized as this world computation platform initially, and like we should still preserve some of that. And yeah, that's just, I feel like, and I've also like talked about this, and I think the good part of the role of central roadmap is like institutions can come in, they can do like their KYC chain or their RWA chain or whatever they want to do. Like they can just do it on an app chain, which is good. I just don't think it's mutually exclusive to think that we need to like constrain the L1 for like L2 to flourish. And the truth is, something like what Vitalik said about faster block times, it's to make, if I recall correctly, it's to like make base rollups more viable. So like there are certain things that you need. So certain changes that come to the L1 make L2s better. So PDAS, for example, makes L2s better. Different. So inclusion lists, for example, make L2s better. Those kind of like, there are changes that are coming that if they're on Ethereum, they don't hurt rollups in a sense. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that take. And I think like just to adapt like the like outlook that I had a little bit, where maybe it's not totally that like we push everyone off L1, it's just roll up settlement on L1. Like maybe instead we do have like based rollups that becomes a lot more prevalent. And then, if you want to use a rollup, use the rollup, right? But if you want to use like a cross rollup transaction, you want to do some like more complicated financial transaction where you have like a cross domain type of arbitrage. Whenever you're using interoperability, you go directly to the L1. And so it's not just like only using rollups and that's it, but it's like using Ethereum as the best interoperability solution because everyone uses like based sequencing, or all the rollups use based sequencing. And so we go to the L1 for any kind of like cross rollup transactions. And then if we just want one rollup for one use case, we use the rollup.
Covalent is solving the long-term data availability problem where a lot of the data availability providers today in the modular space, when you post data to them, they actually only hold that data for about 12 to 16 days. And then it's basically, it can go into an archive node, or oftentimes it's just kind of put away into the abyss. And what Covalent's trying to do is build this long-term data availability solution, which can plug into some of these modular data availability providers and provide this longer-term perpetual data solution. So what we try to think of this as is when you post transaction data onto Celestio or Veil or any of these modular DA solutions or even Ethereum, Covalent is able to provide a long-term data storage and data availability platform for that data after the time period. Blockchains are billboards, not databases, and we need these providers in the space to be able to kind of hold on to the long-term data that is provided from these providers and these blockchain state. This is where Covalent comes in. They just had a nice rebrand. Check them out on Twitter as well as their website. Thank you for being here. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fraxtal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fraxtal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire app chain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fraxtal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or mainnet into the Fraxtal mainnet, bridge your tokens, and bring your Frax assets into the Fraxtal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fraxtal. You are still early. Join today. Take part in our expedition into the singularity.
Yes. That's really good. I think maybe in the future we have like something like a zkVM and maybe like multiple zkVM rollups in general. It makes interrupt way easier and stuff. So that's like kind of like that vision of the future I like to paint, because this is a vision of the future that is like possible, because at least I know like the privacy and scaling expressions team is still working on trying to like snackify the AVM. So these are like good things coming down the road. Like if we, and again, this is like something I usually say, like we need to like have this sense of urgency. Like Ethereum could be much better than it is. Like I don't think us resting on our laurels and say, well, Ethereum has won in 2024 is like really good. Like there's still like a bigger race down the line, and I feel like we should definitely try and compete and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, there's tons of things coming down the line, which is good, because I'm with you. Like, I don't think we should just ossify and that's it. Something better would come along and then beat Ethereum, and Ethereum would go away.
I mean, at some point we'll have to ossify. That's true, because we don't have to like keep changing things. But I just don't feel like it needs to happen now. For example, that's like not really. I mean, we cannot say when it's going to happen, but like just saying it needs to happen because, well, issues are now coming, or we need to become like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin doesn't want to be Bitcoin anymore. so that's
it. Like, yeah. Look at Bitcoin, right? Like, even Bitcoin's not ossifying. Like, it was for a while, right? But then I think it's very reactionary. Like, these protocols, they get good for a while, people like them, and then everything's fine. But then something comes along, starts to compete, and then you have to react and you have to get better and adapt. Otherwise, you die, And so I think for survival purposes, these protocols are going to have to adapt. Sometimes some of them adapt on their own, right? And they just continue to innovate. Some of them are more reactionary, like Bitcoin. OPCat is coming sometime soon. But like ultimately, I think nothing can ossify and survive forever. Like maybe you can ossify temporarily, but you have to continue to innovate in order to stay relevant.
The ETH ETF was like a very pivotal moment for like Bitcoin, because now it was like, well, no one ever get an ETF, but like we got an ETF and they're like, oh, maybe BTC now needs to compete. So I think maybe getting a sole ETF is probably going to do the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Solana Ethereum relationship is similar to the Ethereum Bitcoin one in a sense, but I also just feel like this is like this is all the Ethereum conversation in the last like 2 months is such a bottom signal ETH BTC, top signal Sol ETH, ETFs coming. I don't know what's going on in Ethereum land, but like if we don't get a gigacent here, we're gonna blow each other's heads off by the end of the year if something doesn't
This guy's
change
calling
here.
for the bottom on ETH Bitcoin.
No, I don't know. It's impossible to call. However, the sentiment just seems like Ethereum community's infighting, Solana's freaking shooting shots, Bitcoin's having fun with ETF, and I just feel like that's the problem with Ethereum's positioning. It's like the risk to reward of Bitcoin is so much better from a long-term investor's perspective, in my opinion, if you don't pay attention to like the whole proof of work problem, which I think is like a bigger problem in and of itself. But like, I don't know, like, BlackRock doesn't care necessarily. I mean, they do, but the proof of stake situation is just a big social coordination game anyway. So like, then if you extrapolate that out to Solana is just a better risk adjusted bet for like higher upside, more beta, outperformance of ETH. So you've got like these two giants where you can do less risk or more risk, and then ETH's just kind of in the middle. And like,
Yeah,
who
so
wants to buy
I
ETH?
feel like that's it, like we need to start like shilling L2s in a very coordinated way, because again, like what you said, speaking to what you said, I just had a talk at Modular Summit around this, like if L2s as an institution as extensions of Ethereum, it's not just because of like alignment or whatever it is, but like there's an actual social contract and like this meta idea that Ethereum is not dead, but it's living through its rollups. And I feel like we need to sort of like emphasize that relationship. So, for example, when someone says, well, Ethereum is dead because of high gas fees, you can just say, well, use a rollup. And we should also like take some things like L2 decentralization seriously. So, like L2s as extensions of Ethereum is actually true in practice. That's like something I also want to do going forward. This sense of having like, that's when I had this floated this idea of like united chains of Ethereum, but like this sense of Ethereum is not just Ethereum, the one layer one chain anymore. It's now Ethereum, the layer one chain, or like this budding L2 ecosystem. For example, like Eclipse is an XVM, roll up on Ethereum. There's like few labs doing UTXOs. There's Mega ETH. There's all of these projects, which is kind of good.
Like, I'm all for this, but like, yeah, let's go talk to each of these roll-up teams that are building walled gardens in their own clusters with their own incentive mechanisms, and they don't want to interoperate on the same shared sequencer, and they don't want to share users and liquidity. So like, I thought shared sequencers was gonna like, and like some sort of chain abstraction idea was gonna like make the entrance into Ethereum roll-up ecosystems. Like, I could enter on Arbitrum and end up being on Blast, Optimism, ZK Sync, all these other ones without really caring or like necessarily like wanting to care. But it seems like there's still an incentive problem to get all of these roll-up clusters and their respective stacks of L3s and L2s to all want to, basically what it's coming down to is share sequencer revenues and share MEV. And like, we got to figure out how we can do that. And then like that, I think combined with this improved UX on some of these chain abstraction as far as cross chain and interoperability goes, like I think those are two big lifts for us that I think will really help to make Ethereum not feel like L1 plus fragmented L2s, but Ethereum L1 and Ethereum like scale layer, or like just all in one kind of sandwich.
This is something Vitalik actually discussed. It was like Ethereum, it should not feel like you're using like different chains. You should feel like you're using one Ethereum verse. He said this are like ETC. So I think there's like I've talked about like incentive issues with roll-ups trying to like build their own little empires. I think it's something to talk about. I mean, again, this is like where I talk about like coordination issues, because in Ethereum land there's this sense of don't try to coordinate, don't centralize, and like coordination. The reason we usually talk about like Moloch, slaying Moloch is when we don't coordinate, everyone sort of like optimizes their own specific part of the pie and doesn't try to grow the pie. And like at the end of the day, they're all going to like die because we don't stick together and survive. I don't. There's this meme of like heaps together strong. It's really like you're really stronger together than apart. So that's something that I'm also that's why I'm really like just like build out the collective. I feel like we need like this neutral ground zero for like everyone to. I mean, one of the things we can solve is L2 should not like be fighting over the same small pool of solid developers. It's like a bajillion developers out there that don't even know anything about Ethereum. We should be looking to like get more into the ecosystem first before trying to like hold on to like this small part of the pie in general. So I think things like Cake Framework from Frontier Research, I think that's good because right now they're trying to like talk to like these different interop people. Okay, what are you building? What are you building? How do you make sure this is like very interoperable? So, and I think Vitalik has also said some along the lines of like, there's just like work to do, but because like
the cake framework needs some work as well, but according to the chain abstraction leaders, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like it's the Lord's work because like no one is going to like step up and try and like connect people. But I'm really hoping like the collective can like start somewhere. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, also one last thing here is I'm ready for I appreciate the community cynicism around where we've gotten thus far and like, oh, we need to do this and this isn't great, but like also it's a little bit tiresome. Like I don't know if it's just like number go up is what we need or like just like some apps to like come online or some better coordination or like a combination of all of them, but
we need apps.
The amount of cynicism in this yeah, man.
We need apps and like there's no like funnel. And I think this was something like I think Ryan Beckman's was like very like top community leader in Ethereum ecosystem said it. It was like on Solana, like people try out things like things that don't seem to work, like Deepin, for example, things that don't seem to work because there's like an actual funnel for you funding these things. In Ethereum, we fund a lot of infra because builders don't get like so because the funding is just there for infra and not for apps. People bias towards infra, not enough apps. So like these are like solvable problems for us. We just start like start coordinating around like funding apps, and I think there's like a lot of work to do. But like it's a mixture of different. And the truth is, for me, it's not just tied to price action. It's just tied to long-term prospects. I want Ethereum to have more users, more builders. These are just things like this is just we are building tech for people. Let people use it and build on it. Say.
The roll up, baby. Thank you for coming on, Emmanuel. Great time, great conversation. Yeah. Cheers, mate. Much love.